This video will cover exercise 3-1 in chapter 3 of the web authoring class. You can find this exercise on page 121, again exercise 3-1, use PHP MyAdmin with a database. Now chapter 3 is an extremely important chapter because it introduces you to a database and what all of its parts and pieces are, along with some terminology that will help you understand how a database operates and what its capabilities are. Very important that you work through the exercise and understand a little bit about what it is that you're doing, because these principles will be used for the remainder of the exercises in this class. So let's start off on page 121. The first thing I want you to do is get into the PHP MyAdmin console. If you don't already have this, have your services started down here, you need to start those up and go into the admin console on the MySQL service. That'll look like this. One of the first things that it wants you to do is to set the password for the root user if you haven't already done so. In my case, I already have set one, so let me walk you through how you would do that. If you don't have one, you just click log in, and it takes you straight to this. This is the console for the MySQL database. Under privileges, you will see a list of defined users. The user that has all of privileges is called root, and they want you to set a password for that. To do that, it's very simple. You come out here to the end, on the end of the row that says root, click edit privileges. These are all the privileges that you can give or take away from root. Root has everything. To set a password, come down here to the change password section and type the password that you would like the root user to have. The book recommends something called Sesame. I'm just going to put the word password, retype it again, and click go. If it's successful, you get a message right here that says the password for root at localhost was changed successfully. Now this root at localhost, MySQL database privileges are not only tied to the user but also to the location of the database. In this case, the database is running on the local machine or localhost. So the password change was successful. It's also telling you what the actual command that it issued to the database was. For all of the nice GUI colorful buttons and tabs and things that are going on here, what this front end actually does is collect up your requests based on what you enter into the GUI and formulate a command that it sends to the database to perform the function that you're asking. So in other words, instead of using this GUI with all the checkboxes and input boxes, if you had direct access to the database, you could have simply issued this command and it would have changed the password for root. Of course, the asterisk would, or masking out the actual password, you would type in the actual value here. Or once you set a password, click the log off button here, log out, and then use your new password to log in. And it should take you right back where you were. The first thing we have to do is to import or define the databases that the book wants you to use. You may have already done this in a previous exercise, but in case you didn't, I'll walk you through it. If you want to quickly define all of the database and tables and other things that the book is going to need, you simply click import, click browse, and you navigate to wherever you installed XAMPP, which is probably the C drive XAMPP. Under htdocs, there's a folder called book apps, and inside that folder is a folder called createdb. Inside that folder is a set of SQL statements, or a SQL script as they call it, called createdb. So click here and say open. That'll fill in the gap with that path to that file, and then come down here and click go. Now before I click go, look over here on the left. These are all of the known databases right now. So keep an eye on this list over here. I want to click go, and it says import has been successfully finished, 28 queries executed. And now notice under my, we have two new tables. and these numbers next to those tables indicate the number of rows. So if we click on Guitar Shop 1, that takes us into that database, and within that database there are 3 tables: categories, orders, and products. For each of these tables, the admin console gives you several functions that you can take advantage of. Probably the most popular is this one called Browse. So we can click on Browse next to Categories, and that actually runs a query, and here's what it ran: select asterisk, which means select all columns from a table called Categories. And just to make sure that in case this table was really huge, it put a limit on the number of rows it was going to retrieve. This table is very tiny right now. It only has 3 rows, and here they are. Only 2 columns. There's an ID, which is just a number starting at 1 through 3 in this case, and a category name of guitars, basses, and drums. So this table only has 2 columns and 3 rows. And here's all of the rows inside that table. Now it wants you, starting on number 8 on page 122, it wants you to use the SQL tab to run the first query in figure 3-4 and then run the second query. So looking back in the book on back in the chapter rather, on 3-4, there are several queries that it asks you to run. We can click the SQL tab to get into, open up a little editable SQL window, and it's going to try and give you some defaults, but we're going to take all those out. And now the query that it wants you to run, if you look at the top of page 101, it says select asterisk from products where category ID equals 2. So once you've typed your query in, then you click go to run it, and it reformats your query just a little bit, kind of breaks it down by keyword, and then gives you the result set. So we ran a query of category ID equal 2, and sure enough there are 2 rows. Now it wants you to run another query, again on the middle of page 101. Now we can type in select product name, comma, list price, just those 2 columns, from products where list price is less than 500, order by list price ASC. Now this is doing quite a bit. This statement is saying select these 2 columns, product name and list price, from a table called products. We will only want the rows where the list price is less than $500, and once we get those rows, then we want to tell the database to sort those rows or order those rows by list price. So we type all that in and we click go, and scroll down a little bit, and there is our result set. So we've got only those with a list price of less than 500, so you notice there's no amounts over 500. And we said order, or return order the list by list price, so you notice it's low to high from $2.99 to $4.99. The last thing it wants you to do is to log out and then log in as a different user. In this case, MGS Tester, which is one of the users that was defined when we ran that script. So let's log in as MGS_tester, and the password is PA55WORD, all lowercase. Click go. Type in select asterisk from categories and click go. And instead of getting data back, now you get select command denied to this user, because this user does not have privilege of this database. So that's about it for exercise 3-1.